Welcome back to another deep dive with My Mind MashUps. We're your guides, and today we're plunging into a world that's been shaping history for millennia, often completely unseen: cryptography. Forget the cheesy spy movies for just a second. This is the real deal, the art and science of secret communication. It's about how hidden messages, they haven't just added intrigue to stories.
No, not at all.
They've influenced wars, altered political outcomes, and they're absolutely foundational to our security and privacy in this digital world we live in right now.
Exactly. And our sources for this deep dive, we've got a mix of historical accounts, some modern analysis. They really reveal this constant, fascinating battle. It's like an intellectual arms race between those who need to keep secrets locked away and, well, those determined to unlock them.
That's why we're calling it the unseen war. And our mission today is to pull out the most important nuggets from these sources, tracing this war from its surprisingly simple beginnings, all the way to the cutting edge of technology. We really want to show you why this silent conflict is more relevant than ever.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack how this hidden battle has been fought across the ages.
So imagine a world with no electricity, no computers. Sending a quick email wasn't even a concept, right?
Right. A completely different world.
Yet the need for secrecy was just as profound. Our story really kicks off with some, well, truly ancient methods.
Yeah. Long before complex algorithms, people were incredibly ingenious. They used physical objects, simple substitutions, anything to hide messages.
Like the Spartan Cytil.
Yeah.
When I first read about this, I thought it was just brilliant in its simplicity. How exactly did that work?
It's wonderfully low-tech, really. It wasn't about language tricks, it was a physical key. You'd take a strip of parchment, maybe leather, and wrap it tightly around a cylinder, a rod that had a very specific diameter. Then you write your message lengthwise down the rod.
Okay, so when you unwrap the parchment.
Total jumble. All the letters were mixed up, completely meaningless to anyone who just found the strip. Only by wrapping it again around another rod of the exact same diameter could the message realign itself and become readable.
So the diameter was the key. Literally a physical object you needed.
Precisely. A tangible key. Very clever.
That is so clever. And then, centuries later, we get the Caesar cipher, which is maybe a bit more widely known today.
Yes, definitely. Attributed to Julius Caesar, used for his military communications. This one was a substitution cipher.
Well, yeah.
You simply shift each letter in your original message a fixed number of positions down the alphabet.
Like A becomes D, B becomes E, something like that.
Exactly. Caesar reportedly used a shift of 3, so A became D, became E, and so on.
It sounds incredibly simple, though. I mean, was it actually effective?
Well, against unsophisticated opponents who had, no real concept of code breaking, yes. It could certainly confuse someone just looking at it.
Okay.
But its simplicity also kind of hinted at the future of cryptanalysis, breaking codes.
Wait, how? If it's just shifting letters, how would you even start to break that? Seems tough if you don't know the shift number.
That's where the analysis comes in. People figured out pretty early on that in any language, certain letters appear way more often than others.
Like E in English.
Exactly, E or T or A in English. So if you get a coded message using a simple shift like Caesar's, you just count which coded letter shows up most often.
Ah, frequency analysis.
Right. If X is the most common letter in the coded text, it's probably the shifted version of E. Once you figure out 1 or 2 letters like that, you can usually deduce the shift number and crack the whole message.
Okay.
This idea of analyzing patterns, looking for frequencies, that's the very beginning of code breaking, the start of the other side of this unseen war.
Fascinating. So the war isn't just creating codes, it's immediately about finding ways to break them too. It's a constant back and forth.
Always.
But beyond military leaders, the sources show this need for secret communication popped up in, well, much more personal ways too, didn't it?
Absolutely. It shows that deep human need for secrecy, for connection, sometimes for survival. Think about Mary, Queen of Scots.
Right, while she was imprisoned.
Yes. She used ciphers, quite complex ones for the time, to communicate secretly with her allies. Political intrigue, maybe even coded love letters.
Talk about high stakes. I read that those letters, once they were decoded much later, played a pretty big role in her fate.
They did indeed. It's like a historical thriller wrapped up in cryptography.
And then centuries later, moving forward a bit, into the Victorian era, you see things like puzzle rings and secret language jewelry.
Yeah, that sounds much more romantic, doesn't it?
Definitely less about military strategy.
And often it was about romance. or maybe secret societies, these puzzle rings, they would come apart into separate bands. And you could only put them back together in one specific way. The order was a kind of physical code. Some jewelry even hid tiny messages, only visible maybe under heat or with a magnifying glass.
Secrets worn right out in the open. Clever. So from parchment and rings, this whole unseen war, it escalated dramatically with technology. As the world hurtled towards those massive global conflicts in the early 20th century, the need for truly unbreakable communication became absolutely critical.
Right. The stakes just exploded. If your enemy could read your military plans, your strategy, you were probably doomed.
And this is where we meet a machine that really defined a generation of conflict. The Enigma machine.
Ah, yes, Enigma. Developed in Germany back in the 1920s. Initially, it was actually for commercial use, like banking.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it quickly became the backbone of German military communication during World War II. It looked sort of like a typewriter on the outside.
Right.
But inside, it was this electromechanical marvel, rotating rotors, a plug board for extra scrambling.
So this wasn't a simple letter shift like Caesar's cipher. This was seriously complex.
Oh, incredibly complex for its time. Each time you pressed a key, the electrical signal went through a unique path determined by the rotor positions, the plug board setting.
And those settings changed.
Constantly. Daily settings changed, sometimes even within a single message based on procedures.
How many different ways could you even set one up? The number must have been huge.
It was staggering. For the military versions, the number of possible unique settings for encrypting just one message was over 159 quintillion.
Quintillion.
Yeah, it's an almost unimaginable number. The Nazis genuinely believed their Enigma communications were totally secure, unbreakable. And this confidence was a critical factor in their military strategy.
But as history tends to show us, unbreakable is often more of a challenge than a fact, especially in this unseen war.
Absolutely.
Because across the English Channel, in a rather unassuming country mansion, the counterattack was being mounted at Bletchley Park.
Indeed. Bletchley Park became the nerve center of Britain's top-secret code-breaking effort. And what's so fascinating is the team they put together there.
Yeah.
It wasn't just mathematicians, though there were plenty of brilliant ones. They brought in linguists, classicists, chess grandmasters, even experts at solving cryptic crosswords.
Really? Crossword experts.
Yep. Showed that breaking these codes required all kinds of thinking, different kinds of intellect.
And at the heart of that effort, a name we definitely recognize today, Alan Turing.
Turing. A truly brilliant mathematician, a logician, really one of the fathers of theoretical computer science and artificial intelligence. He led the team focused on cracking Enigma.
How do they even approach it? Against those quintillions of settings?
Well, they looked for weaknesses. Not just theoretical mathematical flaws, but often human errors or procedural shortcuts the German operators sometimes made.
The human factor.
Always key. And their main weapon in this fight was the bomb.
The bomb machine.
Yes. A sophisticated electromechanical machine, quite large, designed specifically to test thousands of potential Enigma settings at high speed. It was basically a specialized decryption engine built to churn through possibilities based on clever deductions.
Like guessing common phrases that might be in the messages?
Exactly. They used what they called cribs, educated guesses.
Huh?
Things like standard greetings, maybe Heil Hitler often appeared at the end of messages, or standardized weather reports sent by U-boats at specific times. They'd use these cribs to dramatically reduce the number of settings the bomb needed to check.
Still sounds like incredibly intense work.
Oh, it was relentless. High pressure, round-the-clock work against a ticking clock, knowing lives depended on it.
And the impact. When they finally started cracking Enigma traffic consistently.
It was absolutely pivotal to the Allied victory. The intelligence they gained, which was codenamed Ultra, it gave the Allies unprecedented, near real-time insight into German military plans, intentions, movements. For instance, it allowed them to track German U-boat movements during the critical Battle of the Atlantic. They could reroute Allied convoys away from the wolf packs,
saving countless ships, supplies, lives.
Immense savings. It also gave them advance warning of troop deployments, strategic intentions, influencing the outcomes in key battles North Africa, Italy, and contributing significantly to the success of huge operations like the D-Day landings.
It's just incredible to think how this intellectual victory, breaking a code, directly impacted the physical course of the war.
It truly is. Winston Churchill himself later said that the ultra-intelligence was, and I quote, the most important single factor in winning the war.
Wow.
It just highlights how controlling information, winning this unseen war of codes can be just as decisive, maybe even more so, than winning on the actual battlefield.
So World War II ends, but the global conflict doesn't really disappear, does it? It just shifts. The Cold War begins.
Right, a whole new kind of conflict.
And this unseen war moves into a new arena. Espionage, intelligence agencies, cloak and dagger stuff.
Precisely. The Cold War was this long, tense, ideological battle fought through proxy wars, yes, but also through covert operations and a massive intelligence arms race. Cryptography became an absolutely central weapon for agencies like the CIA in the US and the KGB in the Soviet Union.
It was the backbone of their secret operations.
Literally the backbone. Protecting their own communications, trying to break the other sides. It was fundamental to everything they did secretly.
And this is where we really see the technology shift, moving away from mechanical wonders like Enigma towards electronics and the very first computers.
Yeah, the advent of digital computers, even in their early room-sized state, it just opened up a whole new world for cryptography. They allowed for the creation of algorithms, mathematical recipes for scrambling data that were astronomically more complex than anything mechanical could achieve. The US, for example, developed the Data Encryption Standard, DES, in the 1970s.
DES.
It was revolutionary at the time, the first real public standard for digital encryption. But, as computing power kept growing exponentially.
You were slow.
Exactly. DES eventually became vulnerable. It could be broken with enough computing power. So that led to the development of its successor, the Advanced Encryption Standard, or AES.
And AES is still used today.
Oh, yeah. AES is incredibly widely used today. It's considered very secure against current computers. It's protecting data on your hard drive in databases all over the place.
So these new electronic weapons in the unseen war were constantly evolving.
Constantly. A perpetual arms race. Just digital now. And the Cold War era itself is just full of those classic spy story tropes, many directly tied to crypto.
Like the mysterious numbers stations. I've heard about those.
Yeah. Those strange shortwave radio broadcasts just airing sequences of numbers read out, often by a spooky automated voice. Widely believed, though never officially confirmed by most countries, to be coded messages for spies operating undercover in foreign territory. They're just a perfect symbol of the hidden communication channels of that era.
Creepy and fascinating.
Totally. And then you had the more physical methods, still ingenious, for hiding messages. Things like dead drops.
Where you leave something hidden for someone else to pick up?
Exactly. A secret hiding place. And maybe even more famous, microdots.
Microdots. Weren't those messages shrunk down incredibly small? Like photographically?
Yes. You take a page of text or a diagram, photograph it, and then shrink it down photographically onto a tiny piece of film, sometimes no bigger than the period at the end of this sentence.
Wow. How would you even read that?
You needed special optics, like a microscope or a custom viewer. It just shows that blend of, high-tech for the time, the microphotography, and simple physical cleverness in getting information across secretly.
And then, almost seemingly overnight in historical terms, the biggest shift yet happened. The internet.
Right. The digital age, it didn't just add a new front to the unseen war, it kind of blew the whole thing wide open. It brought the war right into everyone's home, everyone's pocket.
Yeah.
Cryptography went from being this specialized tool for governments and spies to being an absolutely essential, mostly invisible guardian of our everyday lives.
It really is everywhere now, isn't it? Even if we don't consciously think about it most of the time.
Exactly. Every single time you send an email or buy something online, log into your bank account, or even just browse the web and see that little padlock icon in your browser address bar.
The HTTPS lock.
Right, indicating a secure connection. You are relying on powerful cryptography working constantly, silently in the background.
So it's protecting our personal data, our financial details, our private conversations, pretty much everything online.
Pretty much. It protects your data when it's stored, when it's transmitted. It secures financial transactions, the communication between all your smart devices. The very integrity of the global economy relies on it.
It's hard to imagine the digital world without it.
It would be chaos, a complete mess, vulnerable to theft, intrusion, manipulation on a massive scale. Algorithms like AES, which we mentioned for data storage, and another big one called RSA.
RSA.
Yeah, RSA is crucial for establishing secure connections, like that padlock icon. It relies on a very clever mathematical trick. It's easy to multiply two huge prime numbers together, but incredibly hard for current computers to take that resulting huge number and figure out the original prime factors.
Yeah. the factoring problem.
Exactly. That difficulty is the foundation for much of our internet security today. These are the workhorses silently protecting our digital infrastructure.
But with cryptography becoming so powerful, so essential, and so widespread, it inevitably ran headfirst into some really complex ethical territory, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Tools designed to protect privacy can also be used to hide secrets that maybe shouldn't be kept. Or they become the very targets for government surveillance. And nowhere was this tension clearer than with the Edward Snowden leaks in 2013.
That event was a genuine global turning point. It ignited this massive ongoing debate.
Snowden, who was an NSA contractor, he had deep access.
Right. Deep technical access and understanding of secure protocols.
And he used that access to expose the sheer scale of government surveillance happening.
His leaks revealed these vast, previously unknown surveillance programs run by the U.S. National Security Agency, the NSA, and its partners. They were collecting enormous amounts of metadata, who called who, when, for how long, and sometimes actual communications content from ordinary citizens all around the world, often without specific warrants or even, arguably, consent.
This wasn't just a technical leak about spying capabilities. It forced a global confrontation with some really fundamental questions, right?
It absolutely did. It sparked intense debate everywhere about the balance. Where do we draw the line between national security and individual privacy? How much power should intelligence agencies have in this digital age? What are the limits on government surveillance, especially of its own citizens?
Yeah.
And it also starkly highlighted the dual nature of cryptography itself. Snowden reportedly used sophisticated encryption tools to protect the very information he was leaking.
Right, to communicate securely with journalists.
Exactly, showing how encryption can be a powerful shield for personal privacy, for whistleblowers, for journalists. While at the same time, it's the very thing governments often want to bypass or break into for intelligence gathering or law enforcement.
So it really comes down to who controls the keys to the digital kingdom? Who gets access to information? And what are the legitimate limits on surveillance in this constantly evolving unseen war? These are deeply tied to fundamental human rights and freedoms.
Precisely. The Snowden leaks made it absolutely undeniable that this isn't just a technical issue for geeks anymore. It's a profound societal, political, and philosophical one that affects everyone. Note, reporting neutrally on the event and its implications.
Okay, now shifting gears a little bit from the really high-stakes global drama for a moment, because the sources also had some surprisingly fun, even whimsical examples of how cryptography pops up today. It's not always cloak and dagger state secrets.
Chuckles slightly. No, thankfully not. It shows that the creativity, the puzzle-solving aspect inherent in hidden messages is still very much alive, just for fun sometimes, outside of national security or corporate espionage, like invitations to certain elite tech conferences.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, for hacker conferences like DEF CON, the invite isn't just a straightforward email. It might be hidden. Maybe it's an image file with binary code or hexadecimal strings embedded deep within the data.
So you have to decode it to find the party.
Exactly. You need the right tools, the right mindset, that codebreaker's instinct just to figure out the time and place. It's a way to filter for people who enjoy that kind of challenge.
That's a pretty cool way to gatekeep. I also loved the idea you mentioned earlier, cupcake-based cryptography.
Yes, the MIT student story. They apparently use sprinkles arranged in Morse code patterns on top of cupcakes to secretly invite friends to a birthday rave.
That's brilliant.
Isn't it? It's a perfect, delicious example of applying cryptographic principles, encoding information in an unexpected medium to something completely fun and harmless. A truly sweet secret message.
Or the Dungeons & Dragons cipher invitations. That makes sense too.
Yeah, tapping into that fantasy and puzzle-solving mindset. Some D&D dungeon masters have started sending out game invitations that are encrypted, maybe using fantasy runes that correspond to letters, or a simple pigpen cipher, or riddles written on a fake scroll with a wax seal.
So the players have to decode the invite just to find out when and where the game is.
Right. The decoding becomes part of the adventure itself, the first quest before the game even starts.
And a modern nod back to the very beginning, to ancient Spartans. Someone used a sightail for a masquerade ball invite.
Yeah, a modern take on it. Someone hosting a themed event apparently sent guests a strip of paper. It only revealed the time and location of the ball when you wrapped it around a common object of the right diameter, like maybe a standard pencil or a specific type of dowel mentioned subtly elsewhere.
Elegant, mysterious. Brings an ancient method right into a modern fun context.
Exactly. Shows the enduring appeal of hidden messages.
So, okay, this unseen war has come an incredibly long way from, simple sticks and shifted letters through mechanical marvels, global conflicts, ethical minefields to, well, cupcakes. But where does it go next? It really feels like we're standing on the verge of another massive shift, a new technological frontier that could completely change the rules of the game again.
We absolutely are. The next, and arguably the greatest challenge looming over the entire world of cryptography, is quantum computing.
Okay, quantum computing. We hear about it a lot. Let's try to break that down simply. How does it actually threaten our current encryption systems that protect everything online?
Okay, think of it this way. Today's strongest encryption, the stuff protecting banks, governments, secure websites, it relies heavily on mathematical problems that are incredibly hard for even the most powerful classical computers we have today to solve.
Like factoring those huge numbers for RSA.
Exactly like that. Factoring large numbers, solving something called the discrete logarithm problem. These take classical computers, even supercomputers, and in practically long time, thousands or millions of years for the key sizes used today.
Right. Too slow to be useful for breaking codes.
Right. But quantum computers, they work differently. They use the bizarre principles of quantum mechanics, things like superposition and entanglement, to process information in fundamentally new ways. And it turns out, theorists have shown, that quantum computers have the potential to solve some of these specific mathematical problems, the ones underpinning our current security, incredibly efficiently, exponentially faster than classical computers.
So the very problems our current digital security is built on, a powerful enough quantum computer could potentially crack them relatively easily.
That's the concern, exactly. If, or perhaps when, a sufficiently large, stable, and cryptographically relevant quantum computer is built, it could theoretically break many of the public key encryption algorithms currently protecting global communications, financial transactions, government secrets. Essentially, much of the secure digital infrastructure we rely on every day. Algorithms like RSA could become obsolete, vulnerable.
And this isn't just science fiction anymore, is it? This is something governments and big tech companies are actively racing towards building right now.
Yes, absolutely. Nation-states, particularly the US, China, Russia, and major tech companies like Google, IBM, Microsoft, they are pouring billions of dollars into research and development trying to build these powerful quantum machines.
Why the race? What's the prize?
Well, imagine the strategic advantage. The country or the entity that first develops a quantum computer capable of breaking current encryption could potentially gain access to a vast amount of previously secure data and communications from rivals, from corporations, from individuals around the globe. The power shift would be enormous. The potential for economic disruption, for intelligence breakthroughs. It's immense. Think about the chaos if current secure systems suddenly became insecure overnight.
Which is why there's another parallel global race happening, right?
Okay.
The race to develop post-quantum cryptography.
Exactly, or sometimes called quantum-resistant cryptography. While one race is building the potential code-breaking machine, another equally urgent race is on to develop entirely new encryption algorithms.
New algorithms based on different math.
Right. Based on different types of mathematical problems that are believed to be hard for both classical computers and future quantum computers to solve. Researchers are scrambling, exploring things like lattice-based cryptography, code-based cryptography, hash-based signatures, entirely new mathematical foundations for security.
So it's not just about making the current locks stronger, it's about designing completely new kinds of locks that quantum keys won't fit.
That's a good analogy. Yes. It's a fundamental rethinking of how we build digital security from the ground up, preparing for a future where quantum computers are a reality.
The stakes in this next chapter of the unseen war, they just feel incredibly high.
Yeah.
Higher than ever, maybe.
They arguably are. The success or failure in developing, standardizing, and globally deploying robust quantum-resistant cryptography before powerful quantum computers arrive, well, it will have profound implications for personal privacy, for national security, for economic stability, for the global balance of power for decades to come. Mastering this transition gives significant advantages. It's a race that will truly determine the future of digital trust and secrecy in the 21st century.
Wow. Okay. From a simple strip of parchment wrapped around a wooden stick to a global race against the mind-bending power of quantum computers, it has been a truly incredible journey through the history of this unseen war.
It really has. Cryptography, it's just this constant testament to human ingenuity, isn't it? On both sides, the relentless struggle to hide information and the equally relentless drive to reveal it. This intellectual arms race has shaped history, shaped destinies in ways most people never even stop to think about.
And understanding this hidden battlefield, recognizing its critical role, not just in historical events like World War II, but in the security of our own online lives right now and into the future. It feels more crucial than ever, especially as we head into this potential quantum age. The invisible war definitely continues.
It certainly does.
A lot to think about there, right? We really hope this deep dive with My Mind Mashups gave you some new insights, maybe a new appreciation for the codes and ciphers that are all around us, hidden in history and shaping our future. If you enjoyed this exploration into the world of cryptography, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe or follow My Mind Mashups. That way you won't miss our future deep dives into other fascinating topics.
Your support helps us keep digging into these subjects.
Absolutely. You can find My Mind Mashups wherever you get your audio content, including Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you on the next one.